Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the inaugural edition of Conversational Chaos, the intelligent ramblings between Jason and the Rage Monster. I'm the Rage Monster, and as always, with me is Jason.
Good morning. Hello.
This is actually our second attempt since we are still learning our audio software and apparently don't know it well enough.
We'll get there.
So, our random topic generator. What does that have for us this morning, Mr. Jason?
We're going to start with the lightning field that's in western New Mexico.
It's in western New Mexico?
Western New Mexico.
Okay.
Just to be specific.
What is the lightning field?
It is, from their website, which we'll put in the show notes, it is comprised of 400 polished stainless steel poles installed in a grid array out in the field. Over 1 mile by 1 kilometer.
What is the purpose of the lightning field? Terrify children?
Could be. It's an artwork. It's supposed to be seen as an outdoor museum.
It's artwork. Okay.
Well, it's created by a sculptor, and I guess they took a bunch of poles, and I'm guessing it's not a fence that was left over that they took out the intermediate parts.
Because I'm looking at the photo right now, and it certainly obviously is a grid pattern. How tall are the poles?
20 feet and 7.5 inches. Very specific numbers in units.
20 feet and 7.5 inches in height.
Right. Oh, it's been installed since 1977, so this isn't a new installation.
I see that it's commissioned and maintained by the Dia Art Foundation.
I haven't looked into them, so I can't.
That's very odd.
Vouch
But
for that.
I guess the question, I know we've talked about this. The question is, why would you have a field of stainless steel poles dubbed the lightning field and actually want to have people go into it?
Well, I think it would be exciting to watch lightning strike a whole bunch of poles.
No, I agree with you, but that's counterintuitive. When you were a child and you were outside playing and there was a lightning storm, did your parents say, hey, stay outside and watch the lightning because it's entertaining?
No, we would go on the deck.
Yes, but you were going on the deck and it was covered.
It had a plastic roof.
Oh my God. That's totally unsafe. What were your parents thinking?
We wanted to watch the lightning.
When I was a kid, I used to go out on my parents' front porch, because they had a very large front porch. So you felt kind of safe because the porch length, from the house out was probably 15 feet or so. So you could sit back against the wall of the house and you actually felt kind of safe. But it did not stop. I was out watching a storm one evening. This was when I was a teenager. I was probably like 15 or 16 years old. Had been watching this storm all evening, and the storm had sort of abated. Lightning strikes had kind of gone away, and I was literally on the verge of getting up and going into the house when lightning struck the house across the street. But the lightning struck so close that I couldn't tell where it struck. It scared the life out of me. I jumped probably higher than I've ever jumped in my entire life. And I ran in the house, basically hyperventilating. And I didn't know at that point that it had struck the house across the street. I knew that a lightning bolt had struck somewhere close. And so the next morning, I remember going outside, and I was going to go look at the trees and the immediate area of the house and see if I saw any evidence of a lightning strike. And I saw our neighbor across the street was just walking around his yard, picking things up out of his grass. And I remember walking over, and I asked him, "It's like, what are you doing?" And he says, "Well, it's just pieces of slate all over my lawn." I'm like, "Pieces of slate all over your lawn?" And I looked, and he literally just small pieces of slate from his roof, and kind of stepped back and look up, and sure enough, there is a hole that had to have been 8 inches blown right through his slate roof, and that's where the lightning struck.
Was he home when it hit it?
He was home and in bed, and the lightning struck just above his bedroom.
Oh.
And he heard it. He and his wife heard it, but they didn't notice anything. They didn't see anything. They just heard the loud bang. So it didn't start a fire in the house, I guess, thankfully, but
that's good.
Blew a giant hole in his roof that he had to have repaired. And it's funny because I still go back to my parents' house now sometimes, and if I sit on the porch, you can look across the street because a lot of the houses in the area where I grew up are old. They've been around for at least 150 years. And this house has been there since at least maybe 1820 or 1830. So the old slates, which are the original slates on the roof, are very different in tone than the new slates they put on, so you can still see this little pattern of slates where they had to replace the slates that had gotten blown out.
Did they not have to replace the slates, the old slates on those types of roofs?
No, slate's stone, man. It'll last forever, pretty much. As long as the house doesn't start to sag and cause problems.
Oh.
Like with the house, my parents' house, their roof is slate. And as far as I know, that was built, I think, sometime around the 1840s, 1830s, 1840s. And that, the slates have never been replaced as far as I know. They're the original ones. And it's interesting because you go into some of those old houses and the timbers in the house, they're not, like you go into a modern house now, you see all the interior framing, everything's very consistent, the lumber is all the same.
Oh, right.
In those houses, it's totally not. You could have, a stud in the wall that's 4 inches wide. You could have one that's an inch wide. It's just kind of random how they just use what they had. And of course, this is, in that part of the country, and that's northern New York, basically New England. I mean, I grew up around the New York-Vermont border. They just used the resources that they had on hand, and that's just what they had. And they had sawmills kind of all over that just cut things randomly. And if you just needed wood, you took whatever they had, and that's what you used. Oh. Interesting, the inside, like all the finishing work inside is all really nice, and everything's joined beautifully, and obviously all done by hand. But you tear the walls off, you tear the lath and the plaster off that's also been there forever. And you just see that the rough carpentry, and yeah, that's rough carpentry.
I guess nobody was looking at that, though.
No, you never see that until you start tearing it apart. So back to lightning, this lightning field.
Yeah.
Does it actually cost money for you to go to this lightning field?
You can get a deal. It's only $150 per person. May to June, if you go off season. July and August, it's a little bit more. $250 per person. But with that, you get to stay in their cabin.
Overnight or for like a week?
No, that's per night.
So basically, you're spending $250 to stay in their cabin overnight.
And look at their poles.
Okay.
I can't put a price on experiencing art.
Actually, you know what I can? I can put a price on that.
But they give you dinner. Not supper.
Do they give you lunch too? I mean, if I'm paying $250, they better feed me well.
It is a simple supper, so you're correct.
Oh my God, do they say what it is?
No, but it's left in the refrigerator, so I'm guessing you have to cook it yourself.
Or if they pre-cooked it and they just leave, a microwave.
Could be.
I am not an art person. It sounds very sort of odd because I was a musician for a while, so I believe in art forms, but when it comes to stuff like that, I don't. It's like somebody who takes a canvas and paints a donut shape on it, like a white canvas, a black donut, and has some really interesting explanation for why they painted what they painted. And you'll see these art people look at it, people who like art, and like, ooh, this is great. And the artist is saying this, and I look at it and think to myself, that's a black circle on a piece of white paper. I don't understand it. So things like that, like this art of these, how many rods were there in the lightning field?
I didn't memorize.
You said it was
page.
1 mile by 1 kilometer.
400. That's a lot of posts to see.
I would agree, but
out in western New Mexico.
But I'm looking at the photo right now. That's not art.
Could be.
No,
it's art to some people.
Obviously, the Dia Art Foundation.
I'm guessing they have quite a few visitors. They are booked up through the rest of the year. You'd have to wait till next year to see it.
It really depends on the accommodations. I mean, if you're paying $250 a night to stay in this cabin, and the cabin's actually I like secluded cabins, so I can see obviously that it's in the middle of nowhere and it's in New Mexico, so it's pretty much desert. I would probably pay $250 a night to stay in a cabin in the middle of nowhere. As long as there's not, a KFC, right down the street, I'd be good.
There's no pictures of the cabin.
No pictures of the cabin.
You are also supposed to leave your camera at home, and as well as all your other electronic devices, so you don't disturb the other visitors.
Well, I would imagine, in a lightning field, you wouldn't want to have a lot of electronic devices anyway. Is the cabin in the middle of this field, or is it on the edge of the field?
I'll have to do some more research.
Yeah, we'll have to look into that, because that's
I'm
weird.
guessing there's probably some guerrilla photographers that went and took some.
Some rogue.
It's probably a highly sought after selfie picture.
It's like these crazy pilots you see that take selfies leaning out the window of the aircraft. These commercial airline pilots.
I think their windows open, do they?
Yeah, of course they do.
You sure?
100% positive. If I was on a plane and I found out after the plane landed that the pilot had taken a selfie of themselves leaning out of the window of the aircraft while it was in flight, I think I would have some sort of conniption fit. I mean, that is when the rage would really come out. If they were putting my life in danger to take a selfie.
It's all computerized anyways.
That's not the point. Obviously, you could never do it with a plane flying at speed. It would have to be flying very slow. But the pilot drops his phone or his ridiculous selfie stick. Don't get me started on selfie sticks, okay? First time I ever saw one of those, I honestly thought it was a blind person waving their cane in the sky. And I thought, what is this blind person doing? And it turns out it was their selfie stick. I had no idea what a selfie stick was. But either way, the pilot drops their phone, their selfie stick, their GoPro, whatever it is they're using. It just gets sucked into one of the engines. What do you think happens when a large piece of debris gets sucked into a jet engine?
That's why they have backups.
Yeah, backup's not going to help you if the engine explodes and sets the plane on fire. I would not be happy. Let's put it that way. I would not be happy at all if I found out that a pilot or a co-pilot had decided to do that in flight. And I think that whichever airline it would be setting themselves up for a giant lawsuit. I talk about total disregard for the safety of the people in your charge.
So if you find yourself in western New Mexico, make sure you check out the lightning field.
The lightning field. But if you really, really want a good lightning show, you gotta go to Venezuela. You gotta go to Lake Maracaibo. Apparently the lightning capital of the world. Massive storms go through during the summers, and they'll have hundreds of lightning strikes in a very, very short period of time. But if you don't want to travel to a totalitarian regime country,
wouldn't that be half the fun?
That kind of would be half the fun. You never know when you're going to get kidnapped or when you're going to be, just jailed for seemingly no reason whatsoever. I guess that would keep you on your toes, and it would be mildly entertaining at least. But if you don't like to travel outside of the United States, you could always go to Tampa Bay or Orlando. During the summers, they have very frequent lightning storms, and those are always quite entertaining as well. It rains almost every single day in Central Florida during the summer, just because of the merging of the Gulf winds and the Atlantic winds. They just kind of meet in the middle and dump a little bit of rain every afternoon and some lightning. It's pretty cool.
Sounds exciting.
So yesterday, I was on my way home from work. Okay, so this is 2:00 in the afternoon. I actually saw someone pulled over on the side of the road by two police officers. This is a work van, so it's a white work van on the side of Route 3. They actually had the guy out doing a field sobriety test. And I was thinking to myself, what is going on in your life that you have to do a field sobriety test at 2:00 in the afternoon on a Wednesday? And the sad part was he was failing. This particular individual was failing this field sobriety test.
Was that evident from driving by?
Oh, well, I had to stop just beyond it.
Okay.
Maybe 30 yards beyond it, there was a stoplight. I had to stop at the stoplight, and I'm just watching in my mirror, and this guy's falling all over, and I felt like rolling down my mirror and saying, dude, just give up. Give up, man, because it's evident, and you're just making yourself look stupid. What could possibly be going on in someone's life that they're, obviously it was a work van. So either A, they went out to lunch and never came back, or there's really something serious going on in their lives. They thought they needed to be drunk at 2:00 on a Wednesday afternoon.
Got to give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he was using spray paint or some other.
So what you're saying is instead of being intoxicated from, say, alcohol, this individual was huffing paint.
It could have been accidental. Maybe he didn't have the proper respirator.
I'm sorry, officer. I didn't have my respirator on, and I've been huffing paint fumes all day.
Maybe the can exploded in the back of the van. He thought he could make it to his exit.
I guess that's true. You could give him the benefit of the doubt. Based on the appearance of this particular individual, I would say no. Because even if you're huffing paint doesn't get you high for hours. It gets you high for like 30 seconds.
But if it opened in the back of the van,
no,
it was a white van.
It was.
Could be a worker van, handyman.
No, absolutely. No, I agree with you. But my point is that you remove yourself from those fumes. You're not going to stay high.
It takes a while to wear off.
No, it doesn't. It's like huffing. You know what? We really even shouldn't be talking about this. This is a family-friendly show. So let's not talk about huffing paint
It's dangerous.
It is dangerous. Absolutely don't do it. Just like the Tide Pod Challenge. And if you kids out there, don't even consider it. That's like the dumbest thing ever. You know what the Tide Pod Challenge is, Jason?
No.
These ridiculous teenagers. I don't know what it is with kids nowadays. I mean, we did dumb stuff, right? When we were kids. Everybody does dumb stuff, and you learn from the dumb things that you do. But I don't really think I ever did anything that was severely detrimental to my health. I never did anything that was probably going to kill me. But there was this thing, I don't know if it's still going on. I'm a little out of touch with the whole social media thing anyway. But where these kids were taking the Tide Pods and they were putting them in their mouths and biting down on them to get them to explode in their mouths. Why would you do that? I mean, you swallow that stuff, it's probably going to be very bad for you. It's going to turn out very poorly.
It does look like candy, though.
They weren't doing it because it looked like candy. They were doing it because I don't know if it was a dare. Do you remember the ice bucket challenge?
That was for charity.
Oh, exactly. But the thing is, yes, is it really, that depends on where you grew up, whether that's painful or not. I don't think it was a big deal, but it was kind of the same thing. It was like people's like, hey, I know I single out so-and-so to do this ice bucket challenge. Well, then you got these kids saying, hey, I bet you Johnny can't put 2 Tide Pods in his mouth and bite down on him. And I think it was Gronkowski, who's the receiver for the Patriots. You know what I'm talking about?
No.
You don't watch football, do you?
Super Bowl. Maybe sporadically throughout
the
season.
Well, then you should know who Gronk is. He was in the Super Bowl last year. And the year before that. Sure. Anyway, he's a receiver for the Patriots. And he actually posted a YouTube video basically telling kids not to bite into these Tide Pods because it was a really stupid thing to do. And as a result, he is now a spokesman for Tide. There's actually commercials now that have Gronk.
So that's him.
That's him. Yeah.
Okay.
Because he thought it was a horrible idea. And he was correct for these kids to be biting into these Tide Pods. We just kind of got off on a tangent. I don't know exactly where we came from.
You're a poor guy on the side of the road who's...
that's right. Poor guy on the side of the road whose can of Rust-Oleum apparently possibly ruptured in the back of his car.
Maybe it got too hot.
It could have. It was hot yesterday. Quite possibly the can got too hot and it exploded in the back. And but then I will reiterate, if you're huffing paint, you're high for about 30 seconds. You're not high for, an hour. And this guy had obviously been out of the vehicle for a while. He was trying to explain to the officer as I was driving by slowly, because the officers were right kind of on the edge of the lane, that he didn't think that he could do, because he was doing the 1 foot in front of the other down the line, that he didn't think he could do that.
Oh.
I didn't hear what he was saying, but it was evident that that's what he was doing. So, and then when he was doing it, as I was waiting for my light to change, he was failing quite miserably. So
that's too bad.
Yeah, I've never had to do the silly human tricks before.
No,
never.
Good for you.
How about you?
No,
never. Yeah,
no.
I tend to not consume alcohol often, or really rarely ever. But even if I do, I certainly wouldn't drive after doing it. But again, we digress. We move on to the next topic. Okay, we've covered the lightning field. What does our random topic generator have for the day?
What kind of gasoline do you put in your car?
Regular gasoline.
87?
87 octane, yeah.
Oh, how long have you been doing that?
Since I've owned cars. Since 1993.
You don't ever go to 89 or 90?
Oh, actually, that's not true. I guess the car that I had before the vehicle I drive now was a car that required 89 or higher octane. If you put lower than 89 octane in there, it would ping. And basically, when you have an engine that uses that needs a higher octane fuel, basically the compression ratio is higher. So if you put a lower octane in there, its ignition it could spontaneously combust basically once it gets to a high enough compression. So when you put low octane fuel into a car that requires higher octane gasoline, the cylinder will actually ignite before full compression. So it makes this like loud, like pinging sound if you do that. Yeah. It's actually a ping. It's not really a knock. I mean, it is a knock, but it actually makes a ping, like a ping sound. And so I kind of found it out the hard way that my car required when I purchased it, it never came up. It came with a full tank of fuel, so I never thought about it. The first time I put gas in, I'm like, why the heck is it now making this noise? And it was because I had put 87 octane in it. So I ran it through probably half a tank of that, and then I put a higher octane fuel in it to kind of thin out the mix a little. But after that, I put in either 89 or 91, whatever was available. I wouldn't say whatever's cheaper, because obviously 89 is going to be cheaper than 91. But there were some gas stations where you couldn't get 89, so you would have to put in 91.
Do you frequent the same gas station?
Typically,
Yeah.
And it's really just for no other reason other than the fact that it's the convenient one. Generally, I tend to get gasoline in the morning on my way to work.
Yeah,
and so
that's the better time.
Yeah, it's dead. When I come into work at 5 o'clock in the morning, so for me, that's all gas stations are dead.
The temperature of the ground is colder, so you get more gasoline.
Yes, that's true.
Volume. But you don't care you just go to whatever's convenient and you get whatever's cheap.
I go to whatever's convenient.
So is it a name brand one, or is it just like Joe's gasoline?
It's a Wawa. It's just convenient because I literally have to drive right by it. I can conveniently get off of Route 3, and I can get right back on Route 3 easily and not have to worry about backtracking or going to a different station. Because
my gas station habits are completely opposite. So I go out of my way.
You go out of your way to
go to a specific gas station. Do you monitor your miles per gallon?
Yes.
You do?
I do, yeah.
Each fill up?
Every one, yeah.
Do you plot it in a spreadsheet?
I am not a math dork, so I do not plot it in a spreadsheet. Do I keep a mental tally? Yeah, sort of. I mean, I'll know, like if I fill up and I check my mileage, I'll know if it's off, because it's typical. I fill up my gas tank when I have about an eighth of a tank of gas left. And when I run my mileage, it's typically for that amount of gas that I've used, 420, 430 miles. So I know that if I go to fill up the car with roughly the same amount of fuel, and it's 380 miles, and obviously something's wrong. The engine's not running efficiently for some reason or another. So you plot. You do. You plot your fuel consumption in a spreadsheet, don't you?
I do.
Oh, my God, you do?
I compare year to year. Each year I try to better my previous year's miles per gallon. So I go to a specific gas station because some gas stations change their mix different in the winter, and you get lower gas mileage. So I picked one that tends to have a better winter mix.
What is the ethanol percentage that they put in the gasoline at that particular station? Do you know?
I don't know.
Because that'll make a difference.
It just has the generic ethanol sticker.
The generic ethanol sticker? This gasoline contains ethanol? That's all it says?
Like 10% or less.
Yeah.
But at a gas station, I don't know if this is completely true, but if you go to like a Shell, they only have to sell Shell gasoline like 51% of the time. And the rest of the time, they can just sell whatever they want. And the trucks never say Shell on it. They just usually have a nice picture
they never
of a
say
duck
anything,
or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I go to the same gas station, but I go on Tuesdays because they have a sale on the 93 octane. And then I go on Thursdays because they have a sale on the 87 octane. I prefer the 89 because you get some of the engine detergents, so it keeps your engine a little bit cleaner. But
you drive a Toyota, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So they usually take the 90 whatever and the 87 and mix it together to get the mid octane, so you get some detergents. So I figure I would just mix it myself and save the. You're looking at me, shaking your head.
You understand, of course, this is completely backward thinking.
Why is it backward?
Changing.
I thought it was brilliant.
It's totally not brilliant. It's exactly the opposite of brilliant. If you have a car like the one you have,
right,
putting in higher octane fuel does not improve your engine's efficiency.
Well, no, I put in 97, 92, and 87, and I get like 89 out when it mixes together in the tank.
To what end?
I get 89.
To what end?
Because you get some of the detergents that keeps the engine clean.
How many miles do you have on your vehicle?
50,000.
50,000.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of a way to. If you took another vehicle, say my vehicle only had 50,000 miles on it, which it doesn't, but say that it does.
Right.
I only put 87 octane in because that's what the engine requires to run. Okay. The 87 octane that I've been putting in for my 50,000 miles and the half and half mixture that you've been putting in for your 50,000 miles, if you were to take the engines apart, there probably wouldn't be a real difference in the condition of the engine components?
I don't know. See, now I got some expert advice from someone who had a Toyota like mine. I was talking to them, and they said they would always run 89, but they got into some money problems, so they switched to 87, and they ended up having all kinds of... Their engine didn't run as smoothly, so they had to run some engine cleaner through it and switch back to 89, and it fixed their problem.
This is really strange.
You got to trust it was a pizza delivery guy that came to my
because
house. He drives a lot.
Why did you get into a conversation with your pizza delivery guy over the fuel he puts in his tank? First of all, he's got places to go. The last thing he should be doing is hanging out at your house talking about the octane he puts in his vehicle. Even regardless if the vehicle is the same as yours, it shouldn't make a difference.
It was an older one, so he has more experience with the longevity.
So the vehicle was older, or the pizza delivery guy was older?
I think he was younger. The vehicle was older. I mean, he's a pizza delivery guy. You can't go buy a new truck on a pizza delivery. You wouldn't want to do that delivering pizzas anyways. He probably has his new one at home.
Yeah, he's got his Dodge Viper parked in his 3-car garage.
He could.
Next to his Ducati motorcycle.
He had a lot of details to give me that day. Hope I was first on the schedule.
No, you hope you were last.
Then mine would be the coldest.
No, you want to be last. If you're going to keep him at your house for an hour talking about the octane he puts in his car. This is a ridiculous tangent that we're on right now.
For everybody else on the route, I would want to be last. But I'm guessing you probably talked to the other people too.
The way an engine is designed and put together is it's designed to work on a certain type of fuel. Putting in different type of fuel isn't going to make the engine perform any better.
It hasn't made it perform worse. I'm keeping track of my mileage.
Remember. Okay, well, how do you feel? This is an interesting question. How do you feel about alternative fuels? Things like, corn alcohol.
Great.
Yeah,
as soon as possible.
E85.
If I could get oil from McDonald's fry vat, put it in there, I would.
You can get conversion kits
not
for vehicles. Probably not yours, but
no.
You can get conversion kits for diesel engines.
Yeah, but
to run
the
on
supply
that
is
stuff.
kind of hard.
I don't
want to be driving across the country and have to track down a McDonald's.
Yeah, but it's not like you can just take can you imagine the nasty stuff that's in that grease from the McDonald's fryer?
But it's just food, though.
Yeah, but you want to be putting fuel in your or food in your fuel tank?
Put a filter on the front.
No, you totally can do that, but I don't know.
You don't like alternative
No,
fuels?
No, I totally do. But I think we're going in the wrong direction when it comes to alternative fuels. We're not taking a big enough leap. We're taking these little tiny baby steps.
You got to get there somehow.
No, but the baby steps that we're taking are like baby steps in a circle. We have to get totally away from fossil fuels and vehicles. You know that. I know that. Everybody knows that. But
I would say everybody knows that.
That's true, and everybody doesn't know that. That's a Dunning-Kruger argument that we'll have on another day. But everybody kind of understands. Well, okay, again, not everybody. Most people, intelligent people, understand that we need to get away from these fossil fuels, and we need to do something that is certainly sustainable. I do think that electric cars are a good way to go. But a lot of people don't think very clearly about where the electricity comes from that charges those batteries. In most cases, the electricity that comes into your house that charges the batteries in your electric vehicle overnight are coming from either a coal-burning power plant or...
Yay, coal!
Yay, coal!
Black lung.
You have to say that. You're from Ohio.
I'm not a fan.
No, I
would rather have a big fan on my roof.
Yes. No, I mean, I would rather have solar panels. And as far as vehicles are concerned, I think that there is so much wasted potential energy in a car that probably could be tapped. And I know we've talked about this at times in the past anyway. They could be tapped to partially recharge a battery, or you get into all sorts of weird issues there. I mean, you're an engineer, you would know more about it than I would probably, but you're going to be getting different voltages, so everything would kind of have to be banged down to one voltage type to charge a battery. But as far as these alternative fuel things go, do I really want to grow a bunch of corn to make fuel to put in my car? That's really it. Is it changing the reliance on fossil fuels? Yeah, it is, but at what cost? I don't even know what the stats are, and I really wish that I had thought about this ahead of time. I didn't know we were going to be talking about this today, and actually read up a little more on it. But you have to grow a bunch of corn.
Well, yeah, you can't just stick a couple kernels in your tank.
No, but what I'm saying is, so there's a ton of stuff that has to happen. But how many arable acres of land do we have to grow corn on? Which corn is a destructive ground crop. It doesn't give anything really back to the soil. It's just a taker. And so a field you can only grow corn on. You can grow corn on effectively forever, but your yield is going to get less and less.
Yeah.
Just because it saps so much nutrient out of the soil. So then that involves things like, okay, well now we have to put in more, not pesticides, fertilizers. So you're talking about chemical fertilizers and things to like replenish the soil. And then, what environmental effects is that having? I mean, you and I live in the area of the Chesapeake Bay, and they talk about that all the time. All these farms over on the eastern shore of Maryland that spray all these chemical fertilizers onto their crops, and then that just washes into the bay. And just look at the localized detrimental environmental effects it has had just on the bay. Now take that whole process and ramp it up to start growing corn to make the fuel to put in these cars, and I think it's pretty environmentally damaging. So that's kind of what I mean when I say we're sort of walking in a circle. We're not making anything better. We're making it different, I guess, is really what it comes down to. All right. Thanks everybody for joining us, and look forward to hearing some of your comments.